we're so quick to look at the opposite sex as a potential romantic partner that it's almost impossible if you were in that mindset to like relate in mixed gender scenarios with people on a platonic basis. Welcome to the Strength and Dignity podcast, where we like to disrupt the Western story with God's biblical narrative. We often discuss difficult, avoided, or controversial topics here with the intention of diving into the scriptures to see what God thinks and says despite how countercultural it might be. I'm your host, Kelsey Pryor. Welcome to our relationship series, where we will discuss romantic relationships as well as topics like friendship and singleness. I'm excited to dive into these topics with you, featuring various guests. If you're enjoying this series, please be sure to leave us a rating and review. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Strength and Dignity podcast. I'm excited for this episode today because this one is with my brother Jackson. Hi Jackson.
Hi. Hi Jackson.
Hi Jackson. Okay, so Jackson's my little brother. He's 20 and I'm 21. And we're going to talk about dating today. And we're actually both single. So
we know what we're talking about.
We know what we're talking about. The way that this episode is going to go is both of us have thought about dating in various seasons of our life very intentionally. But we haven't thought oh, this is the best way to date. This is just amazing. I've just found this new whatever. And so it's still one of those things that's like a conversation each time. But what I decided to do is there's a teaching from 2018. I'm going to link it in the show notes below. That was actually really impactful. Sorry, he's being goofy on camera. That was actually really impactful to the way that I thought about just relationships in general. So what I thought we would do is, so that we have both a guy's and a girl's perspective, I've listened to it, Jackson hasn't. I'm just going to play this teaching and pause it every now and then, and we're going to discuss and react to it. So that's how this is going to go. And we'll just hop right in. It's a pretty long teaching, so this episode is going to be a bit of a longer episode, maybe put it on 2x speed, but there's some really, really good nuggets in here that I'm excited for you guys to listen to. So let's dive in. This is by Matt and Julia Bradner, and it's the Co-NCY Indie podcast, which is just a bunch of teachings from a campus ministry in New York. So I'll have that linked below, but we're just going to start listening to it.
All right, so you've heard about the Bradner clan a little bit, and Julia and I, we're in our 18th year of marriage, and that's right. There we go. Could have been taken today. I say there's two different things about this picture.
He's showing a picture in the talk.
I was like,
do you feel like I should put this on 2x speed?
No.
I listened to this in 2x speed. Will that be?
Oh my gosh, it's 64 minutes long.
I told you it's a little over an hour.
Oh my gosh.
So if I put it in 2x speed, it'll be 32 minutes plus our reactions and discussions.
Okay, well, it's up to you.
All right, we're going to do some 2x, and then when there's something we want to pause and harp on, we'll do that.
Does that mean that the listeners can't listen to
Yes.
anything besides 2x? Okay.
Yes.
Well.
So bear with us. If you want to re-listen to this, again, it's linked below. Listen to it 1x speed. But when there's something we want to
But it's 64 minutes long.
Yeah,
so
it's long. We don't
be
want this to be too long
careful.
for you guys. Okay, here we go.
Let's hear it. More love. But seriously, so if I could summarize our marriage in a verse, it would be Philippians 1:9. Paul says, my prayer is that your love may abound more and more with all knowledge and depth of insight. So Paul's talking to the people who are loving one another. He says, love more and love better. With every passing year, I would say that Julie and I have learned to not only love each other more, but love each other better. It just gets sweeter and sweeter as we learn each other. And that's what we try to do with our children. And that's what we try to do with our staff and students is not only love you more, but love you better than we did the previous year. So God has helped us to do that.
And it's really not an exaggeration or a dramatization when we say that our marriage is what it is. And our family is what it is, largely to years of relationship seminars that we sat in as students, and largely to years of commitments that we made.
I just like that.
You can.
Our marriage is what it is.
No, she's saying it is what it is because of relationship seminars.
Oh.
You didn't let her finish her sentence.
I can't. Our family is what it is. Whatever.
I'm not being dramatic when I say that commitments and teaching that we sat underneath and the hard work that we did before our Lord when we were your age has reached so much fruit, manifold, to be where we are today.
Who are they talking to?
That there are more future
A whole young adults group,
Wow.
college age group.
Okay.
more future families sitting in this room right here. And we also believe that there are some of you who aren't going to get married, okay? And regardless of who you are in this room, we're excited because this next 45 minutes is going to give you content that's going to
She said there's some of you that aren't going to get married. Amen. Okay, sorry.
love others deeper, and have God-honoring biblical relational principles to follow.
So 3 of our favorite words is the title of a book that every area we talk about we go to, and the words are start with why. The idea is that we quickly jump to what do we need to do in the area of relationships? How do we need to do it? But the strongest and most lasting motivator is why. Why do we do what we do? So we ask the question, why are we passionate about speaking to you about this? And we have 2 answers. The first one is this: the problems are too great to remain silent. Why are we excited about being here? The problems are too great to remain silent. So this side of the room, from this point over, if y'all would stand up just for a second. This side. Thank you. So statistics would say, you've heard this, that over 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And that's
50% of all marriages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those who claim to be Christian marriages. But what about your demographic? So ages 20 to 25. If we could have from about this over, y'all stand up. Just if you don't want to stand up and you're in this line, don't do it. Okay, good. Statistics would say 60% of all 20 to 25-year-olds who get married, it will end in divorce. So y'all can all stand. It's clear that something's not right with the way that we're doing this thing called relationships and ultimately how we're getting to marriage. And so that's why, one reason why we're here, the problems are too great to remain silent.
The second reason we're here is because the promises are too great to remain silent. As Christians, we don't have to live in fear with the threat of all of these statistics hanging over us. Rather, we can live with faith in the promises of God that He has for us. Now, with statistics, only some of us are included in those, okay? Not so with the promises of God. The promises of God are offered to all who are trusting in Jesus and all who submit to His reign and His rule in our life. So now we want all y'all to stand up.
All right, we're trying to get y'all going. We know it's a little late.
Okay, so I think that was cool. I feel like that was
Okay.
cool imagery.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're in this room teaching, and they're saying 50% of marriages end in divorce. They have 50% of the room stand up. And then they say 60% of 20 to 24-year-olds who get married end in divorce and have more of the room stand up. And they said, but 100% of us get to partake in the promises of God and have the whole room stand up. I just think that's really cool. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's very sad that there's not a difference in the Christian marriages versus every other marriage.
Yeah, and they're linking that back to the dating culture. Like, there's, like, when we look at the divorce rate, there's clearly something wrong with how we get into marriages, with how we, like, ignite those relationships, for so many of them to be ending in divorce. I think another reason for it might also be just we don't think about marriage the way that God intended it, especially among non-believers. But what they're saying is it's also the statistics are also that bad in Christian communities, Christians who like value marriage, and lots of people in that position might even be like, quote unquote, dating to marry and still ends in divorce.
Well, do you really think that dating is the biggest, like if dating was fixed, that would all be changed?
I think like human fallenness is the biggest component, but I feel like the strategy is deeply flawed.
I wonder how much of a difference it would actually make.
Yeah, we haven't really seen anything in our generation
Right.
like that. Because there's also an article I'm going to link below. We'll probably refer back to it a couple of times that Jackson and I have both read. It's called Why Courtship is Fundamentally Flawed. Because that's... Oh, you can hear our dog in the background. That was the Christian world's response to dating was courtship. And this article is basically saying how courtship is also fundamentally flawed, maybe even more so than dating, and how it also results in a lot of divorces. So we'll probably refer back to that a couple times, but it's just interesting to know that like the different strategies tried out in the last like 2-3 generations don't seem to be that successful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Come on, everybody stand up.
Listen, this is something that every single one of you who trust in Christ is available to you. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does He withhold from those who walk uprightly. That's Psalm 84:11.
Luke 12:32. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom.
Psalm 34:8. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man or woman who takes refuge in Him.
Psalm 37:3-5. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.
All right, y'all can sit down. The problems are too great, but the promises are too great. So this. I don't think you got many people out there that are offering something that's very helpful, something that's working. So would you just consider? What we're saying. So that's what I just want to praise. Is just consideration. And then.
So that's one thing I wanted to pause on too. That they're saying that some of the things they're about to say are actually from their real life experiences. Like they're not just these theoretical ideas, but they are vastly different than the way that we do dating nowadays. And he's basically saying like, how fast are you willing to run after the Lord in this area? I don't know if you've given much thought to that question. Like when you think about it being like the solution or one of the possible solutions to dating maybe being incredibly countercultural. Maybe the question asking the question, like, how hard and fast am I willing to run after the Lord?
Well, yeah. What does that have to do with dating, though? Like you're saying,
Like if it's I feel like countercultural things in general, but dating is included in that.
right? Okay.
So like how like choosing to run after the Lord rather than choose the easy thing that the culture has set up for you to do.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Have you considered that question when thinking about dating relationships?
Not really.
Okay. Cool. Nice, Jackson. I'm just kidding.
Wow. Thanks.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Have
That's
you?
what that's what they're but a lot of that was spurred on by
I would say like everything I think of is from a view of attempting to honor the Lord, but it's not necessarily something that I feel like I don't feel like I am pursuing God when I'm pursuing a woman as much. Not that I think that he's deeply involved in it, you know. But I don't necessarily feel like I'm which is obvious at this point because I haven't dated that much, nor have I found my wife yet.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it will be chasing the Lord's will until it's her, you know? So
that's the hard thing talking about dating is like, how do you know you've done it right until you actually get married and you live for 50 years and you're like,
Right.
oh, we stayed together. That was a good decision. Like we did that right. Or
I
even
mean-
if we didn't do it right, God redeemed it. Or, you know?
maybe another definition of doing it right would be doing it in such a way that doesn't end in catastrophic, like, damage after
Yeah.
the two break up, you know?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say that's another way of doing it right. But-
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things that the courtship article talks about is how like courtship was so intentional that it was an emotional equivalent to a divorce when you broke up or when you called it off.
Yep.
And I feel like dating is so unintentional that you go around, or sometimes can be so unintentional. You go around creating all of these bonds with all of these guys or girls.
Yeah.
And then you're torn up in multiple different directions. So it's like both of them are ending in, like, it's either you get married or it ends badly. Like, there's
Right.
not really an in between.
Yep.
Okay.
So it all began a Sunday evening, October of, y'all ready for this? 1998. That's right. 1998. That hair was flowing. And it was a Sunday evening.
That was in 1990.
That was it. And that was then already. So we were at church service, and it was Sunday evening in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was fixated on the pastor as he was teaching. And little did I know, a few rows back, that there was a sophomore from Elon University, and she was fixated as well. But she wasn't fixated on the pastor; she was fixated on me. Is that accurate?
That's not entirely true.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
right, I came with a girl who'd been discipling me in college, and I did indeed notice a young man sitting in
Let's
front of me.
go, let's go.
I noticed his nice broad shoulders and his flowing hair, right now. But I noticed his broad shoulders, and it did stick out to me. He was intent on listening, and he was taking notes. He had his Bible open, and that stuck out to me. So after the service, Stacey and I walked over, and Stacey had known him from a previous Campus Outreach Summer Project, and it was then that I met Matt Bradner, or as everybody knew him, Matty B.
So afterwards, we all decided to go out to eat.
Matty B.
And a group of us,
Matty B.
a special place in our heart. A group of us, we said, let's go play some games. And so we went to an apartment near our campus, and we played a card game, Kemps, which was a two-person card game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Two-person card game.
In the car ride there,
Like
in the car ride,
partners.
together, the girls were like,
It's a
don't know where she was at,
four-person
and
card
I always
game.
took advantage of every opportunity to hang out with sharp ladies. And so I was like, I'll take it. So I was
Hold on, it's important to say Kemps is a 4-person card game. With two teams of two.
I think he meant, two
Yeah,
on two.
okay.
Yeah.
ladies, hey fellas, write that down. Take advantage. I'm not joking. Take advantage of opportunities to get around sharp ladies. And we were in the car, and I was actually trying to. And this is gonna sound like I'm like the Christian player, but it wasn't like this.
Girl, don't you know that's how I was going to take you? Y'all remember that, girl? Don't you know?
That was a non-Christian right there. But I was looking at Stacey, you know what? That didn't sound like a plan, but even out like this, she was in the driver's seat, and she said, Julia, tell Matt about your testimony. And she shared about coming to Christ, and then she shared about her parents coming to Christ. And that had happened with me, that my father and brother came to the Lord after. And for the first time, we were sitting next to each other. For the first time, as she was talking, I saw Julia Felico. And that's, I remember that was a sweet moment.
So we had so much fun playing games.
Whoa.
We had some natural chemistry that time. We did end up having some good victory that night. But before the night ended, Matt and I were able to have a conversation. And Matt began to share what he was learning in God's Word, what God had been teaching him. And we ended up talking about how God had used so many men and women in the past, wondering if maybe God might use our lives to impact the future as well. And I remember thinking after that, that was so great. That was so enjoyable. And it was just right. It was just a good, just felt right to have that type of interaction with him. God, I want more of those. And honestly, I wasn't thinking I want more of those with Matty B because I didn't really think I'd ever see him again the first time I had met him. And honestly, I just was like, that dude's way out of my league. So I don't even need to consider him as something. But God, would you maybe bring more of those types of interactions? So what God did for me in that night is just, at that night was giving me hope. Matty had raised the bar a little bit. God, would you do that? Would you bring somebody that was spiritually encouraging in such a good, right way?
And I remember thinking the same thing as Julia and Stacey walked in, where they were saying, give me more interactions with girls like that. No joke. And I was cutting the hair of the dude that was discipling me, spiritual mentoring me the next day, telling him about the night, and literally he stopped and looked back. He's like, hey, I never heard you talk about a girl like that. And I was like, easy, bro. I'll chip your ear. Like, stop it. I was like, chill, man, chill. And so I went to go send an email to Stacey and Julia, the girl introduced us that we played with, and I didn't have Julia's email, but I felt like it was a little bit too desperate to say, Stacey, make sure Julia gets this. So I did say that, and Julia never emailed back.
So in those early days, like I had never met Matt, I had heard about him. We went to different schools, but we were both involved in Campus Outreach. And so I started to hear about this Matty B, and he had a good reputation, and he loved God, and God was using him on the campus. And so I started hearing about that. And as for the email, I did get the email, but I know this might sound weird, but honestly, I didn't respond because he didn't ask me to respond. So I didn't.
she didn't respond to his email.
I was checking a thing, refresh. So a few weeks later, I was asked to come speak at one of the campuses next to where she went to school. And afterwards, a bunch of people went out to dinner, and I noticed a girl that was in Julia's Bible study on her campus. And so I went up to Latoya, and I was like, Latoya, you're in Julia Felico's Bible study, right? She was like, yes. And I said, can I get her email? She said, why? And literally, I had to give her like this defense of like why I wanted it. And y'all, that told me something. She's got girls in her life, and they care about her, and they're not just giving her information. At the time, it'd be like digits, you know. Sorry, we weren't rocking the cell phone at the time. It would be, and that told me something that was significant. And so, yeah, I'll stay for that.
Okay, so 99.
I think that was interesting.
Yeah.
Like paying attention to the people that the person you're interested in surrounds themselves with.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty important. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have any specific things that you've ever noticed, like around the people that girls surround themselves with?
Yeah, I think that it's more or less how they handle themselves in group situations that I've noticed more than the people that they choose, because, you know, my whole dating experience has been in high school, so it's not necessarily like sounds like they're college age right now.
Yeah.
So high school, you don't really have a choice. It's like your classmates and stuff,
Right.
you know? So it's more of how you, man, that was 2 years ago. That's so weird. That was really weird. But yeah, so that was, so like in high school, it was more of how you interact with people rather than who you decide to surround yourself with. Because we're all, especially during, homeschool co-ops, everyone hangs out with everyone, you know? So we're all hanging out with the same people all the time. So it's not, didn't really have a choice, but yeah.
But the next time we saw each other was at our New Year's conference. And y'all, this is so silly. My birthday is December 28th, and that year I had gotten this winter coat. And I'll just be honest, I thought I looked good in that coat. And I remember, I had seen Julia since the first night, and I remember wearing that coat in the registration lobby and sweating, but not going to take that coat off till Julia Felico sees me. No, this is real talk, y'all. So I was already just really, like,
That's funny.
I just remember, like, dang, looking around, like, next bus coming in. Finally, I saw Julia. I was like, expecting her to, like, fall out, She said she don't even remember the jacket. I love one of my favorite books was The Pursuit of God by David Tozer. I love to give books to people, so I decided to give Julia this book. And so I wrote a note at the beginning of the book, and I didn't write the name of who I was giving it to. And I left the dudes in my room to be read. I said, y'all read this note. What y'all think about this note? They're like, sounds encouraging. I was like, good. You boys want to give it to a girl. And why did I do that? I just wanted her to know that I was enjoying her friendship, and I was looking forward to getting to know her. That's all I wanted to communicate. So I gave her the book.
Got the book right when we were getting on the buses to leave, and it's now one of my all-time favorites. I think everyone in here should read that book. No joke. A.W. Tozer, The Pursuit of God. Okay. Now here's the deal.
A.W. Tozer, The Pursuit of God is what they just said.
We had some really great interactions at conference. We hang out. We talk about what we were pulling from the seminars and the talks and all that kind of stuff. So I had to discipline myself from taking our interactions, from opening that book and taking his note and interpreting them in light of what I hoped that he meant by them, in light of what I wanted it to mean for me, for us, for the future. Instead, interpret them in light of certainty. And so the next semester, a friend came and took me and one of my girlfriends on a date. And then at the end of the school year, we went on our first
You want to pause it there?
Yeah.
That's definitely important when you're reading anything or consuming information with the pursuit of growth, and you're trying to apply it to a very specific situation so that it feels like it's like a sign or something to move forward with what you want to move forward with, rather than sounds like she tried more to make it objective so that it was always going to be right no matter who she was interested in. Try to absorb it that way. That's important, because I definitely do the former, where it's like interpret everything right.
Instead of just like truth is truth.
Project, and I knew that a handful of guys I led in a Bible study on my campus were going to be on project. So I huddled the guys up. I said, fellas, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want y'all to get to know as many Christian women on this project as you can. I want you to get to know them, talk to them, build a relationship, and I want each of you to come back in the summer and tell me who you think the sharpest girl in that project is. So I had little hidden agenda. They had no clue about Julia. They didn't know that we had friendship or anything. And in the summer, it's a true story. We sat down at a picnic table at the Landlubber Lodge, and they said, Maddie B, this project's full of amazing women, and we got to know them all. They said, but we've all talked, and we think there is one girl that you need to go after. And my heart was pounding, boy. And they said, her name is the BJ. He said, her name is Julia Felico. I remember being so just excited and thankful. And I will note this: Julia wasn't a team leader on the project. She wasn't a room leader on the project. She was on the servant team. It was her service of the Lord, her love for Him, and her just fun with people that made them say, of all people, Maddie B needs to go after this girl.
Wow.
So I'm gonna pause our story. I just want you to. I wonder what you're thinking right now.
Yeah. What do you think about that? He sent all of his friends on this trip saying, find the best, he said sharpest girl.
Yeah.
And they all came back and they all were like, this girl. I just think that's crazy.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
I know. To have not only people that you trust like that, but also people that are like seeking the best for you, but like also that they all agreed, like the same person.
Yep.
I just think that's so cool.
That story right there. I wonder what you're thinking.
So anytime we speak to a group of college students, we assume that many of you hear the story like that and we think, well, that's not going to be me. That can never be me. They must not know who they're talking to, and some other objection like that.
And so maybe you don't relate to our story. So we're going to give you another story, a guy and a girl, to let you know we understand who we're talking to in the room. that story might feel foreign to you, but maybe you can relate to parts of this story. So we'll put it up. Imagine that we've got a guy on the left, and this might be representative in the room. Comes from a cultural Christian home. This guy has a divorced home, raised by a single parent. His early years, let's say that this guy was shy towards girls. High school, experienced the first kiss. Many marriages, y'all know the term many marriages. It's just a boyfriend, girlfriend, like you're going to be together forever, and then it breaks up. Many marriages, emotional attachment, sexual activity, including intercourse, marriage talk with multiple girls, including the sexual activity, cheating, entering college. This guy's a non-Christian. Let's go with our girl.
Okay, so here we have a girl who comes from a non-Christian home. Her home's dysfunctional, alcoholic home. In her early years, up through middle school, part of her story is sexual abuse. She had her first kiss, became sexually active then. In high school, became a Christian, but was involved in many marriages where there was emotional attachment, physical attachment, and there was lots of marriage talk. Enters college on the heels of her latest kind of mini divorce.
Okay, so maybe now y'all like, Maddie B. Jules, I don't connect with your story, but I kind of feel at home there. What would I say to this guy? What would I say to you? I would say 2 Corinthians 1:20 says, all the promises of God are yes in Christ. And this is true for all who trust in him, even you, young man, if you would say yes to him.
And to this girl, I would say 2 Corinthians 1:20, all the promises of God are yes in Christ. For you, if you would trust in him, even you, and you would say yes to him.
And maybe this guy would look at me and say, that's easy for you to say, Maddie B, you're not me.
And maybe this girl would look to me and say, that's easy for you to say because you're not me.
And I would look to him, and I would say, I am you, buddy. I am you.
And I would look to her, and I would say, actually, I am you.
I don't know if you get it, but the first story you heard was Julia and I, and this is Julia and I. And so don't for a second think that whatever your past is, that it excludes you from the promises of God.
We want you to
Aw, that's so sweet.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of adversity and a lot of, like, they are not, like, it, I think there's, for a lot of broken people, it can feel like they're dirtied or something, like they don't have the ability, or they're not deserving of like a righteous, healthy anything. Yeah. And they're just going to be in this dark, like, difficult, struggling, know. And I think that's important to realize. And I think that, this is another, I think, big failing of Christianity, to make it sound like we're actually, like there's I do think that's not the way I would want to live. It's not the way that Christ would, want me to live either. But it doesn't mean that there isn't room for everyone who, is like that. I mean,
especially because it's like, especially when you choose to become sexually active in a relationship, it can feel like I lost my chance. Like that was a one time, like that decision changes everything. And on one level it does, but I love the point that they're driving home is that does not exclude you from the promises of God and the redemption that Jesus brings. And so like the level of redemption, I mean, those two people, they were saying like that's how they both, Matt and Julia, started out. And then this story, like this like almost fairy tale like story that they told at the beginning is like what they got to, like through reliance on Jesus and the promises of God, and they were in no way excluded from having that type of like this is the one experience, like they like that was still I don't know, they still got to experience that in their marriage and in their dating relationship, which I just think is so miraculous of God that he does that. So it's so super cool. Okay.
We want you to hear this. You're not disqualified. Okay? You remember when Maddie was talking last night about giving authority to God about your past? Have you done that? Have you given God the authority to free you from your past? Or are you still holding on to that and it's preventing you from believing in the promises of God for your future? We want you to hear that a background like ours doesn't prevent you from having a relationship with God and with another person that's really what you long for, what you hope for, what's more than you can imagine. And this brings to the surface some questions we want you to consider. Do you believe in the promises of God for you? Is your identity bound to your past? And are you settling today for less?
So here's what we want to do. The rest of our time, we just want to be helpful, so...
Don't settle for less because of your past. I think that's a cool point.
That's a very cool point, yeah.
We're going to just address a handful. I think we're only going to get to 4, but we slipped in a lot of questions within the questions. We're going to address a handful of
can you pause it real quick?
about Christian.
I would say the same can go for a very pure upbringing, I don't know, I feel like there's some sort of pressure, or they're like, because even though like you and I did not live the way that they lived as teenagers, but gosh, that is a typical story. That is like 98% of the high school that you and I went to, like that's seriously almost everybody. And so when for like the 2% that don't do that or whatever, it can almost feel like you're disqualified, like you've missed out, on like the fun part or something like that. And then maybe like this next part coming up is, I don't know, like it makes it seem like you can be disqualified in another way.
Yeah, I feel like the settle that it can feel like on our end of things can be like settle for someone who's not fun, or someone who's like settle for a relationship that's like all you do is talk about God or theology like all the time, or maybe you have to marry someone that's ugly because they have good values, I feel like those are some lies that either we can hear around us or that we just tell ourselves, like even if no one else is telling it to us, we think like, oh, I have to take a hit or whatever. And it's like, you don't need to settle in those ways either. Like, I mean, it's just the points that they get into of the intentionality through which you go through like finding your spouse, I just think is really helpful. So they're going to get into that, but yeah.
And this is considered an FAQ section. So here we go. Question number 1. How can I prepare for a healthy and lasting marriage? While we know we asked the question, we would really say that's a great question, but it really should be, how should I prepare for a potential healthy and lasting marriage? Because none of us know exactly what the future holds.
And it's different. What Maddie was saying, we really want to try and find the right one and prepare to have a marriage that is God-honoring, kingdom-impacting, healthy, and that can last. So our answer is to live in light of certainty. And the primary thing that you can do today is to go deep. And deep is an acronym we're going to double click on and tell you what we mean by that. And not only do we want to challenge you to commit to going deep, we would really encourage you to note the men and women around you that are also going deep.
Yeah, and if you say, how do you get from that guy and girl and everything that we showed to the testimony we shared at the beginning, it's because we committed to going deep. That's what it is. All right, here we go. Number 1 is D, develop your relationship with God. The certainty is that God has promised you himself. That's certain. Not only has promised you himself, he promises great things when you seek him first. So Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all things shall be added. The idea is that you cannot miss anything that God has for you if you seek him first. I once saw this grid that was kind of like me and God.
I love
it.
That's the most peaceful thing, how many plans like I've had that have completely fallen through and that feel like they're a step backwards, and then it's like, where do I go? Like, how do I continue? Or, you know what I mean? Like that, it's like you can't plan for everything. Like there's no way I can plan at the exact time that I will find a wife or be ready for a wife or be ready for any task that I'm, that I am given, not just by God, but like by life, it feels like, but the comfort of knowing that just by following what he has for you, you're gonna find it, and it'll just fall into place.
Something else, and I come back to God. There's a chance I miss what he has for me. We can talk and debate that biblically, but I think the point is, seek him. You won't miss anything. And the principle is first.
I actually talked a little bit about this in a past podcast episode. I forget what it was called, but when people are like, "What should I do with my life?" I talked about that should not be the question you should ask. The question you should ask is, how do I walk with God? Because you should be walking with God in all things. And if you are, like, either the things you're supposed to do will become clear to you, or the actual thing itself won't matter as much because God is, like, involved in everything that you're doing.
Right.
I feel like that's a little bit of what he's saying. It's like, if you seek him first, it's like good things follow, even if it's not like your wishes are fulfilled or now you have happiness or something like that. It's just that seeking first the kingdom is the first step.
Right. And I mean, honestly, and just try to give new life to that, because that sounds like a cliche, like all you gotta do is follow God and then all your dreams will come true. It just feels like such a weird, or it just feels like such an overstated, you know what I mean? I don't know. I want it to be clear that it is like, it is not just it's a comfort, it's a reality, and it's just like, and it's not as difficult it's not supposed to be binding. I think that's the thing. I think that a lot of people might think of it as like and that means that I can't just do whatever I want, or is that like I'm not going to actually end up doing things that are fulfilling to me, But that's when they actually brought it up at the very beginning of this talk. They were talking about like God will actually bring delight into your life. He'll make it so that you're doing stuff that you love. And I just think that it's important to consider that, God is someone who really He doesn't just want you to like live. He wants you or exist doing. You're not just an NPC, like, you know, like some weird nothing doing nothing. He's a, you know, you're a person that is a treasure to him, and therefore he wants to treat you really well. So,
person you want in a future spouse. And at the heart of this, y'all, is a correct understanding of what is God's will. Because most of us, when we talk about God's will, we're thinking about where he wants me, when he wants me, and what he wants me to do, and who he wants me to be with, right? But if you actually study God's will, do you know what you see? You see that God's clear and explicit will is who you are to be, wherever, whenever, and whatever he calls you to. So the scriptures that talk about God, we spend our time wrestling over, is it God's will if I should start dating? Is it God's will if I should kiss her? Is it God's will if we should get engaged? And here's the thing, God has never in his word explicitly promised you that he would ever reveal that to you ahead of time. But he has clearly and explicitly revealed his will in many other things that we don't ever think about. Be thankful in all circumstances. This is the will of God. Avoid sexual immorality. This is the will of God. Make the best use of your time. This is the will of God. So we're here wrestling over the will of God and things he's never promised to reveal, while we neglect the will of God and things he's clearly revealed. That's why we say, develop your relationship with God. God has promised you himself. So that's number one.
Now, sorry, I'm going to add to that.
Jump in.
Okay, so
do your thing, girl.
when we were developing your relationship with God, I think maybe some of y'all might be sitting here like, seriously, we're in a relationship seminar and they're going to say, study God's word, learn how to pray. But honestly, a lot of times I would have an interaction with him and I would go in my dorm room and I would get on my knees. I'm not joking. And I would say, God, I want to love you more than anything else. I really do. I promise you, I really do. Would you help me know you and seek you? I give this to you, Lord. If Matt, would you protect Matt? Would you help him learn how to share his faith? Would you help him walk with God? Would you lead and guide him for your name's sake? Would you do that for me? I was on my knees multiple times. God, protect me. I had been in a relationship that was a Christian relationship. It was not God honoring. It wasn't. And I was very aware that I am steps away from following my own desires. If I do not lay my life down before the Lord continually, seek his word, pray, get involved in other relationships that lead me to God. So developing your walk with God is such a safeguard. I promise you. That is nothing cheesy. That is real, real, real. So, sorry about that. Okay. So E, the D-E, we're on E, embrace singleness. The certainty that is here is God has promised you a period of singleness. Okay? Now,
I just want to say
erase singleness?
no, embrace.
Embrace. Okay. I was like,
Embrace singleness. I like that she says God promises you the certainty of a season of singleness. I feel like most of us don't even think about that season, including myself. Like, I thought I'm going to get married at 18. Like, I for some reason I thought that. Like, that's just what you do. You grow up, you get married, you have kids. It's not you grow up, you're single for a while, and maybe God gives you marriage. And I feel like that was really, like, weird for me to realize after I graduated high school. Like, oh, shoot, I'm not married. What am I supposed to do? Because I also decided not to go to college, which for me I think was a wise choice. It's not for everybody. But, like, it's, you know, there's this in-between. And I think that a lot of the times we think about singleness as the times in between dating. But that's not true. Singleness is the entire season up until the point that you make a vow. And so... yeah,
and I just, mainly just, like... there is so much enjoyment to be had in that. Like, I think that's one of the things that I always thought, sort of, so similar to this, this whole, what we talked about before, like, you're missing out on this end as well. If you if you do embrace this season of singleness, then just like you might feel like you're missing out, you know, and it sounds, it's like, and it always sounds, for whoever talks about this, always ends up sounding like they're settling, or that they're like desperate, or that because they failed at, you know, trying to get into a relationship, they just been like, you know what, whatever. I think everyone should be, you know, in the season of single. But it's like, dude, in reality, just chill out. Like, it's just not, like, you don't need to get married, like, ever, first of all. And you don't need to get married for there to be some sort of, like, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just such a, it's to say that your life cannot be satisfied unless there's another human, you know, in your life that can help you with that, is, for one, putting a lot on marriage, you know, that's putting a lot of pressure on your future spouse, to make you happy. And then it's also just not gonna, it's also preventing you from really experiencing the joy and the love and the adventure that you can have as just as you, you know, because you're cooler than you think, you know. And it's just like being able to, like, be with like, and God is the one who pushes all those qualities out, you know, and that you can really, like, I don't know, think about the responsibilities that come with marriage. If you plan on having kids, you have to, like, you're holding lives, identities in your hand. Just how about, like, you know, take years and years, like, if it needs to be years and years for you to just be ready to be like capable of marriage, you know, like you and I are both capable of marriage right now,
Right.
but choosing not to marry or just not having anyone is not that big of a deal. Like
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Yeah. People have probably heard this before, but marriage is a little bit over glorified. And by a little bit, I mean a lot, especially in the Christian community. And dating relationships and sex is over glorified in the world.
Yeah.
Well, sex is also a reason that marriage is so over glorified in the Christian community.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
But okay, let's keep going.
Singleness feels like a great trial, okay? And a season of rejection and discouragement. And we encourage you to take James 1:2 in view of singleness. Count it all joy when you fall into trials of many kinds, for you know that it is producing something in you that without it, you're going to be lacking, okay?
Yes.
So instead of get out of singleness as fast as I can,
Which is most of our goals.
how about get out of singleness as much as I can? Okay, instead of getting out of singleness as fast as I can, getting out of singleness as much as I can. So there's two main areas.
So pause that. So that they're saying that you should just
Instead of getting out of the singleness season as fast as possible,
Yeah.
you get out of it as much as possible.
I don't guess what?
Like
You just
instead of
said the same
trying,
thing.
like instead of trying to leave the singleness season, you try to reap as many things from it as you can. Like spending time with God, investing in relationships, investing in experiences,
Right.
walking with God. Like all those are the kinds of things that you can get
Okay.
out of singleness.
Yeah, that's what we were saying, but I just feel like that they said that so weird. I was like, what are you talking
Hey, I
about?
thought it was clever.
Remember speaking at a Furman retreat, and as a single man, it was like a month before I was going to get married, and I was so ready to get married. But I remember staying up till 2 a.m. with the dudes. We went to Waffle House. We were just chowing. We were living it up.
Yes,
I remember crying
Waffle
on
House.
the ride home because from now on it would be different. Lord, I've made the most of this. I've made the most of this as a single man. Thank you for that period. I'm so excited, but it's going to be different. Seek to get out of it as much as you can.
And I will add to that, the night before we got married, okay?
Seek to get out. You mean seek to get out of it? Okay, like to try to get stuff out of it.
Yes. Not get out like
I don't like. It's like I need to get out of it. Is what it sounds like. Yeah. Seek to get as much out of it as you can.
And I remember saying, God, I'm so ready, so right. This is right. We're going to be unified into one. But you have been so sufficient for me in singleness. And tomorrow, I'm going to be united with a man who you're going to teach me and lead me through, and we're going to have an amazing marriage. But this is going to end in that way a little bit. And you've helped me make the most of singleness. My intimacy with the Lord was so rich and full. Maximize your period of singleness. So, where am I at? Okay, second area. First area. Oh, sorry. We're going to maximize. You can maximize singleness in two main areas. The first is your contentment. Be content where God has you.
And be content not where you are. Be content where God has you. It's totally different.
So when we say embrace singleness, we don't mean that your goal is to just fall in love with singleness and just love being single.
Bachelor to the rapture.
That's
You
right.
know, you missed it. It's not about the period. What's it about?
So we tend to get stuck on where we are, where we are in this season. But contentment is about who has us where we are. Who has you here? Who's responsible for your season of life? Okay. During this season, your goal can be to fall in love with God and to grow in your trust that He is the one that authors your days. If He saw it any better, there's a better season for you to be in. And that's hard, y'all, because there's many days of tears in seasons that we're in. But we can trust that the good author of God is in that, and He is responsible. Then, eventually, you can find yourself at Psalm 16, when you can say, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Proverbs 31 woman says that she smiles at the future. Now, she's not like an A-ball. She can't see crystal ball. She doesn't know what the future holds, but she does know who holds the future, and that's why she can smile in contentment and rest. And Paul tells us in Philippians 4 that he's learned to be content in all things. Singleness is the number one learning ground for you. And how is it preparation for marriage? Well, if you aren't able to embrace the seasons you're in now, the question is, why do you think you're going to be able to embrace the next season that you're in? Okay, you're going to end up being in marriage and be discontent. Okay, contentment. God can teach you now a healthy habit to fully receive His season, so that you.
I recently read something that was about like how sometimes something that people say in the Christian culture about singles is like, well, I just have to work on myself in order to be worthy of marriage or in order to be ready for marriage. But I think first of all, we're never going to be ready, and second of all, it's like God isn't incapable of giving you something because of the place that you're at. Like, you know, I feel like we think we almost elevate our own thinking of our own selves. Like, there's something I can do in order to earn this. It's like the opposite of the gospel. Like, the root of the gospel is you did nothing to deserve it, but God gave it to you anyways. And, like, I feel like it's a little bit like that with marriage. Like, like, no, like, you could find the best person for you ever. Maybe not the most perfect person, but the best person for you, like the one. And, like, you don't really deserve that, and they don't really deserve you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like thinking, well, if I just better at being single, then I'll be ready, I'll deserve marriage or something like that. But it's like, no matter where you're at, you're always going to, like, fall short of something. And so I think that, like, instead of the purpose of working on, quote unquote, working on yourself in your singleness season being so that you can deserve marriage, like, make it be like what they're saying, being where God has you. And that's going to be by his side. Like, he's never going to wish for you to be anywhere but by his side. And so, how are you walking with him in this season for the pure sake of walking with him, not for the sake of trying to deserve marriage?
Yeah. Yep. I also think that, again, just the emphasis on marriage is really not the end. Like, it's not like, and then it'll be complete. It's not like it's just another season of things you're going to be discontent about, another season of things that are going to have problems. Like, there's no way you can prepare enough to avoid, or to let it, and you can, I'm not saying that you can't love your spouse. Like, I'm saying it's not going to be enjoyable, but I feel like there is something for me, like there is some sort of like a misconception that I subconsciously believe that once I get married, X struggles will go away, or X struggles will be easier, or because there will be, someone with me. And it's going to create another layer of problems as well as creating a lot of things. So it's still ultimately a good thing, but it's not like it's going to solve the fact that you have problems.
Yeah.
So maximize singleness with contentment and in commitment. And what we would say about that is we really believe that someone's commitment to God is an indication into their commitment in marriage. So, that might sound a little harsh. I just think from my experience that whenever you see people...
Wait, can you play, what is that?
The display of your commitment to God
yes,
is a reflection of what your commitment will be in marriage.
Okay.
The training ground that they can extend that full commitment to a spouse. Whenever I was dating Julia, I knew she liked Maddie B and she loved the Lord. And I saw her guard against anything that might come in between her relationship with God. And so Song of Solomon 2:15 says, catch the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyard. I saw her do that in a relationship with God, and guess what? That's what she's done for 17 years in our marriage. I know that if there's anything that could come in and take away from our love, my wife guards it. And she did it with her Lord, and I knew she would do it to me. So contentment and commitment. All right, number 3.
Okay, so we're on the second.
We're on second E.
All right, embrace friendships.
And they had a seminar on this, so you didn't go to it. Listen to it afterwards.
Okay, embrace friendships. The certainty here is God has promised you friendships, but he has not promised you marriage. Okay? We encourage you to stop viewing the opposite sex as a potential mate and see them as a present brother or sister. Most of us need rewiring here, okay? We need our brain to be rewired here. We usually will pursue getting to know someone based on whether or not there's a romantic interest there, an attraction of some kind. And as Christians, we are now told that we're brothers and sisters in Christ. So the principle is this. Our relationships used to be guided by potential for romance. Now, they're guided by the potential for encouragement.
That's huge. When
What do you think about that?
I think I would have actually had a problem with that maybe a couple months ago. I think I'm in a very healthy spot where I am pretty content with being single. And because of that, it actually is irritating when people try to matchmake.
Yes.
So and that is because, again, it's just like, oh, because there's no way you're happy right now. You know what I mean? It's like, of course, like, you want me to, like, help you out by, like, finding this girl and immediately making her immediately, like, let me do the work for you to make it so that you two should be romantically interested, you know? It's just like, dude, like, thank you. I know you know, because, like, because whoever that friend might be, it's like, thank you, because you know that I want to date. You know that I want to be married eventually. But I would much rather just, like, I seriously would, at this point, I would much rather just have female friends rather than like no, that's not true. I would rather every female who comes into my life be considered a friend first, not a potential mate.
Yeah. Yes. And that's just that, like she said, there's a lot of rewiring that needs to happen there because, like, as soon as you start to make friends with the opposite gender, the way that people look at it is first through a romantic lens. Like, oh, are you guys together? Not, oh, you guys must be really good friends. And I feel like sometimes it's just hard to manage a healthy, like, opposite sex friendship.
Yeah.
And so it does look different than a same-sex friendship.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's impossible, and it does mean, like, it doesn't mean that there's nothing you can get out of an opposite sex friendship.
Yeah, I agree with that. But here, another cool thing, like, here's to give you an idea. Like, so I have a group of friends. I have a lot of groups of friends, but there are two that I want to, like, point out. So, like, one of them is every time we hang out, and it's like eventually the conversation boils down to, so when are you gonna find a girl? You know, or like, there's really no one that you're into right now. Like, no one. Come on.
Are these older or younger friends?
Same age.
Okay.
And it's like, you know, what could what could this be? Like, you have, like, you sure, again, like the same thing I was saying before. Surely you are, like, looking about this and thinking about this, you know,
Yeah.
like, so what's the latest? And then, there's another group of friends that I'm with that it's literally one sentence. It's like, so Jack, any update on a girl? And I'm like, no, not really. Cool. And, you know, and it's just like, there's no need to dig that in or make me feel the pressure of, like, you're not, like,
Explaining
you should
yourself.
really,
Like, you have to
you need to
explain
defend,
yourself.
you need to come up with a defense of why you're single still, because of course that's the last thing people would want.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know. And yeah, that was from someone older who's just like, so any update on a girl? No. Cool.
Yeah.
Like, everyone older, you know, and then maybe if I don't know them very well, like that's a friend group. Maybe if it's someone else who asks the same question and have the same reaction, they would probably maybe like, so what's your thought of, like, you know, like this, like what we're talking, like, what do you have a dating philosophy, or like, what do you like, you know, and I might explain it to them, but they're asking purely out of curiosity, not out of like, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, it's just hard when it feels like other people think there's something wrong with the fact that you don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend.
Right.
Like, singleness is the status quo. And so for someone to think that there's something wrong with the fact that you're not dating someone is a little bit bizarre, because, like, I'm naturally single. Like, I was born single.
Right, yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
like, it's a
That's a good
miracle
point,
that
yeah.
so many people actually get married. You know what I mean? And
Well,
it kind of explains the 50% divorce rate.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, everyone else, apparently half of them get divorced.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
It's when the guy who was leading me and some other guys challenged us to view women as potential for encouragement. That's what started I want to get to know the Christian girls in our ministry, and I want to encourage them, because if a Christian man isn't encouraging them, they're going to go find it somewhere else. And so we fought to stop viewing girls in light of the potential for romance, but encouragement. Final area, pour out your life. That's the key. God has promised you the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. We're going to talk about both of these in detail tonight with the Great Commission, but here's what I would say. It is just a sad sight to see a boy or a man and a woman get in a relationship on a campus, and then they're both pretty much checked out from that point forward. He only comes to what she comes to. What both of them can't come to, neither of them come. I mean, they pretty much said, we were going to commit to what is uncertain, this relationship, and neglect during our college years what is certain. Having an impact on the campus. And
Ooh, that is so good.
Dude, that is the most annoying thing in the world, when the person that the person is in a relationship with changes based on that relationship.
Yeah, it's just
so much. Like,
I love how they phrased it. They decide to invest into what's uncertain and neglect what is certain.
Yes.
I feel like this is part of the whole singleness thing. Like, viewing yourself as still a single person and not a married person. Like, Paul in 1 Corinthians 7 describes the single person as an undivided person. Like, the gift and the purpose of this season of life is that you get to be undivided before the Lord. And if your significant other is causing you to be divided before the Lord, that's an ungodly relationship. Like, frankly, okay? Like, even if you are being, like, you don't even touch each other and you only talk about, like, upright things, if that person is causing you to be divided before the Lord, they're causing you to live a fake marriage life before you've made a vow, which is ungodly. That's a controversial thing I just said.
But, I mean,
You agree with that?
I think the only thing, like, if you disagree with that, what, like, of course, like what you said, like, it's controversial because it's a big claim to make.
Yeah.
But if you look at just look at the data. So you've got the fact that, every relationship that is like that, once they break up, it ends horribly. They hate each other. They can't see each other.
Or it's just so sad.
Yeah, or they're in utter depression. They're literally going through withdrawal, or you've got the fact that they get married, you know, and they're together and they struggle in their marriage, you know, and it's not what they thought it was going to be. And then there are some, like not just some, 60% apparently of those people will get divorced. Yeah. So most of the time, even after that, it'll end again. Like there's another like more catastrophic than before. And like I don't know how many of those couples have children, but now you've ruined other lives, you know. And so it's just like, man, like the amount of potential damage that like so all I'm saying is like when you look at and you ask that question, like what you basically just claimed is that kind of relationship is bad. You need to look at the fruit of that. And the fruit is bad, like almost every time, you know. Or
you're just going into marriage like thinking you're prepared for something that is like a lie.
Or not just marriage, like he's not even talking about marriage explicitly.
Well, I'm saying like if you have like a relationship like that where you have what he was calling mini marriages before marriage, and then you end up marrying that person, I feel like you're almost less prepared for marriage, because then you find out how discontented it is. And you're like, well, this wasn't what I was promised, that you think you were promised, by spending so much time. Like I spent so much time with you and I invested so much in you to like be sure of who I was marrying. It's like, it's not a very good judgment of that. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Okay, let's keep going.
You stand before the Lord, you say, what happened to your college year? And say, well, I was preparing for my marriage. The Lord said, I know, but she wasn't there. I didn't have that for you. Really would press you to pour out your life. So that
would feel, you would feel like such an idiot. Like I would just feel so stupid.
What he said real quick, if you missed it, he said, when God asks you, like, what were you doing during your college years? And then you say, well, I was preparing for marriage. And he said, but she wasn't there. Like, she wasn't there.
Oh, like, what a freaking, like, can you imagine? You spend your entire college, like, you're in the prime, you're in your physical prime, you're in your social prime, you're in your education prime, and you're in your financial depression, but you are, like, ready, you're like with experience, I don't know, like, there are so many things about it that you are, like, prepared. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, yeah, like, for God, or just to like have fun, like, and you spend it all waiting for something, for something that never comes, like that. Like you were like, that's the biggest stand up of all time. And the worst thing is you did it to yourself. Like it's not like someone promised you that you were gonna get that, and then they didn't come
that's
through.
What they're saying. God does not promise you that. There are things that he does promise you. A relationship or a marriage is not one of them. Like, there's nowhere in scripture that it says that you are promised a spouse. And Christianity is actually one of the only religions or cultures or whatever that says that there is a place for single people, which we will talk about in my singleness episode, so we won't get totally into that right now. But there is a place and there is a role for single people, and most Christians do not see that as a valued role in the society of Christianity. It is marriage that's the end goal, which that's not true. It's a promise that we have come up with in thin air.
Oh, sorry. One more thing about the friends. This is another thing I've been thinking about. Marriage doesn't last into the kingdom. You know, you don't stay married in heaven. You know, friendships will last for eternity. You know what I mean? Like that is something that will. Yeah, like you're not gonna remain, you're not gonna remain married in heaven. You know what I mean? You're no longer.
What about the friendship part?
The friendship, I mean, it's just, are you gonna stay in? Are you gonna be with the people that?
Like there's gonna be community.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. There is community. There is not marriage. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so this would be like, so you're with your closest group of Christian friends, meaning that they're all like, you're all, so then you all die, go to heaven or rapture, whatever comes first, whatever, like, you're in the kingdom in the future. Nothing about your friendship status, your relationship status has changed, and everything that you built, like if you are friends with this person from birth or from like kindergarten or whatever, and you're still friends with them now and you get to remain friends for all eternity, like you're actually investing in a relationship that literally will last forever. You know what I mean? Versus a relationship that is incredibly useful and helpful if done properly. I'm talking about marriage, in this world. But there's one that you can get anywhere, and there's one that you can get in one.
Well, also marriage is just supposed to be a dim reflection of our relationship with Jesus, which is going to be fulfilled in the kingdom, in the new heavens and the new earth. It's like the pinnacle, like of what you're searching for in
Zenith.
marriage, yeah, that's gonna be fulfilled in the kingdom, not in your marriage.
Right.
Okay.
The question wasn't how can I get there. You can go and get married. Everybody, we can patch you up.
You can
Spouse.
go and get
Yeah,
married.
go get
The
married.
question is how can I prepare for a healthy and lasting marriage? And that's the answer too. So, all right, question number 2. I'm about to turn up the heat in here, JD.
That's right.
That was one question.
What does the Bible say about dating? Question number 2, frequently asked question. What does the Bible say about dating? Well, dating is cultural, not biblical. But hold up, that's not to say that dating is unbiblical. It's just to say it's not a biblical term. It's just not a biblical term. While dating is our cultural norm, there's lots of areas in our world that that's not how they do things. So the question for us is, what is the biblical response to this cultural norm? And there's lots of areas in our lives that we should
I think we need to ask that more often. What's the biblical response to this cultural norm? And I feel like sometimes, like people like the Amish ask this all the time. What's the biblical response to this cultural norm? And the Amish live like the Amish. So it's not like, don't take that all the way in one direction. But that is something that some people might not consider as often as they should.
So what is our culture's dating process? So generally speaking, it goes something like this. You're friends, you move into dating, you become exclusive, you get engaged, and then you get married, just generally speaking. So what about the Bible? All right? Well, it does clearly identify some categories, 2 main categories, a brother and sister relationship and a husband-wife relationship.
Okay. At first glance, the Bible does not seem to give us much instruction on how to go from friend to married, right? Now, we will go ahead and gladly admit, go ahead and put the next slide, please, that there clearly is a third category between brother, sister, and husband and wife. I'm going to call it exclusive relationship. So there clearly is that category. And here's what we want to do.
I'm glad they said that.
This isn't Bible. This is wisdom of 20 years working with college students. And we want to offer you to consider something. We want to press in on the way you think about how quickly you need to get into an exclusive relationship and how long you think you need to be there in order to learn if this person is a match for you. So that's what we want to press in. So how quickly, see, in our culture, any guy or girl that you really like is someone that you quickly get into an exclusive relationship with in order to see if you're a match. Is that fair? So if you like somebody and they like you, then eventually it's going to be, okay, let's get exclusive to see if we're a match. And here's what we're going to suggest. If you are going deep, if you're living in a Christian community with other men and women, we would just suggest that most of what you're trying to discover in an exclusive relationship, you can discover in a brother-sister relationship.
I'm so glad someone said it. Oh my gosh. I really okay, here's the biggest excuse, and this is the biggest and dumbest excuse I hear from a lot of people to get into a relationship, which is basically, it goes a little something like this. Like, how will you know? Like, how, like, just, I'm like, I think people are just significantly under, like, and these are people that are super socially aware, very good at investigating personalities, and like, they'll make, okay, so like, here's a good example. We'll go, like, okay, I get close group of friends, and all these people are deep thinkers, and, we go and hang out with a big group of people. There are some guys there. There are some girls there. The guy will do something that bothers them. And they will be able to tell me the guy, why, what he did to bother him, why he did it, like probably like what the kind of misconceptions that he's believing that led him to be able to do that, a potential way to confront, whatever, But if it's a girl that they like, it's like, I have no idea what the personality is like unless we actually start dating, It's like, you can figure out exclusively, like you can figure out 90% of the way that they will interact with you when they're dating by things that are already there. Like, like seriously 90%. Yeah. Besides the most intimate details of personal relationships, you can, and this is assuming that you have a relationship with this girl or guy, like you're friends with them. You'll be able to figure out just about everything. Like from interactions, you can determine how they will act, how they will act based on certain situations, and you just have to be like close with them, proximity wise.
And I think that doesn't even mean that you can't ever hang out with them one-on-one. You just don't like.
That's not what I said. But exclusive relationship.
We think you have to be exclusive in order to hang out with someone one-on-one. It shouldn't be from jumping from point A to point F. I don't know why I chose F. Yeah,
neither do I. But yeah, I was like, what about Z?
Well, Z is marriage, so I was trying to think of an in-between letter.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay,
F is... move on. Quick.
And what happens is you protect one another, you protect the community around you in ways that is God-honoring. So what we're trying to do is we just want to press in, and we want to highlight brother-sister relationships.
I like that. Hold on. Give me a pause there real quick. The protection that you're offering. Okay, like I think it's important because it can be also a very selfish pursuit to just want to take everything to an exclusive level, because especially because you're, assuming that you follow everything about their strategy up to now. Like, let's say that you do the deep thing. So you're literally selecting and intending to pursue the highest quality person of the opposite sex that is in your friend group, and you want to become immediately exclusive, if there's
ownership that happens around that.
Right, like that is, like, you could end up, I don't know, ruining a lot more than you think. You know what I mean? Like that, the potential that could, like the potential. I mean, you know, I don't know. Like again, like especially here's the thing. Like that's fine, except like if you do it because you want to figure out things that you could easily have figured out without needing to be in a relationship, then it was, in my opinion, kind of a waste. You know what I mean? All right, keep going. Sorry, that was just a little.
Just in relationships. And I'll just go ahead and tell you. Let me add things to my notes. If we were to go on your campus ministry and do an assessment of the community, I think we would conclude on most campus ministries is that you are seeking to have a Christian community with a worldly view of relationships. And what I mean is that you have the guys that hang out together, you have the girls that hang out together, and then you have the few people that are in exclusive relationships that are trying to figure out if they're right for each other. And say that's not biblical. You're meant to have a community where guys and girls are getting to know each other in healthy ways, and they're finding out almost everything they would find out in exclusive relationships.
But that's impossible if you don't do what he said before of not every person is a potential for you.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes. We're so quick to look at the opposite sex as a potential romantic partner that it's almost impossible if you were in that mindset to like relate in mixed gender scenarios with people on a platonic basis.
Right.
Like it's very hard if your mindset hasn't already flipped.
I have a controversial opinion that is controversial even in my family, which is that guys and girls shouldn't be friends. And it's because of this. I know, but it's because of this. It's because, like, I agree that guys and girls should be friends, but I don't think that they can be because of how quickly it jumps. Like, you can subconsciously jump from this person is a person I just met to a person that I could be dating. It's like, it's seriously 0 to 100 in that. Yeah. Like, you go right from one category straight to the other. So I think that, like, the biggest thing in order for that to be create a successful environment where two genders can successfully coexist without needing to be romantic with each other, you would need to make sure that they are not just there for the... Yeah,
and I feel like if one person's going to with this mindset and another person isn't, it might require a awkward conversation or just something that you say in a group of people about the way that you think. I don't know. How do you think that would go? That would happen. Sorry. Our dog's being very needy.
You're being very needy right now. All right, lie down.
Like, how do you think it would work for? Because if like, say we're going into a situation thinking I just want to see these people as like my brothers and sisters or my friends, and another person is coming into this scenario like and looks at you and is like, oh, he's cute, he's a Christian, potential boyfriend. How do you make that known without like encourage them in the friend way that you're supposed to be without like quote unquote like leading them on or whatever? Like, is there a way to have that conversation? No,
there's not. That's the problem. Like, you can't like if you like somebody and then they invite you to some type of individual event, the only thing you're thinking about is this could mean that they like me back. You know what I mean? Like, that's what sucks. Like, there's literally no room. So I think boys and girls can be great friends in like seriously because of the sad existence of that mental state. And I'm about to shoot myself in the foot by saying like, they don't think that way, then you should marry them because they're the right concept. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no. But I'm just saying, like, if they have a guys and girls hanging out in an exclusive relationship is kind of a bad idea because exclusive meaning exclusive friendship, meaning one-on-one interactions. I personally think it's kind of a bad idea because there is because first of all, I think that like I said, it can lead to feelings or something like that. But also, I think that the biggest thing is you can still observe everything you need to observe in a group situation.
Okay, let's keep listening to hear what they have to say, because they're gonna slightly disagree with you on that, but I feel like you're both having the same intention.
I would love to hear it.
With the exception of a few things, and we'll get into in a few minutes. Okay, from off the
so what often comes with exclusivity really is expectation and obligation. Okay, just gotta know that. A lot of times what comes with exclusivity in a relationship is expectation and obligation. And often we see people become exclusive because they want that guarantee of time and attention from the other person. And also they just want that physical intimacy that comes in usually in the realms of an exclusive relationship. And you also want the security that those two areas, time and attention and physical intimacy isn't going outside of this right here. You want protection.
You see that? We're going to be exclusive because I want the guarantee of your time and attention. Number 2, I want privileges. Number 3, I want to know that you're not going to get that time and attention or privileges to somebody else. We would just ask you to evaluate whether you're getting into an exclusive relationship for the right reasons. Just to consider it. Is committing your time and attention to a guy or a girl the most important thing for you at this stage of your life? Would you just consider that? Will it help you go deep? It could. It definitely could. Is being in an exclusive relationship that all of a sudden makes this sexual tension live? Is it really the best thing for you? Is it really? Maybe you're in a relationship and that's not there. Well, good for you, but for a lot of us that's not the case. If you're worried that if you're not exclusive with them, that they're going to give all their time and attention and body to another person, is that really the type of person you want to be in an exclusive relationship with? Look, we just want you to consider them with open-handed. And we're going to say some exclusive relationships are amazing, and they are not demanding of all each other's time and attention. They are not pulling them down into a road of sexual contact and physical intimacy. They're not controlling over their life, but more of them than not are. And we're going to say, look, we are not, on record, we are not against boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. We're not against it. So, yeah, we're not against it. We are for brother-sister relationships. We're not against this, and we're just saying that when everybody goes to this one to discover, we think you could probably discover here.
And have less expectations and obligations that are tricky and complicated and get you webbed in.
So, yeah, I think we're clear on that. What you got?
Okay, so, maybe this sounds weird.
It does sound weird.
Okay.
It does sound weird.
That's alright. It's about to get weirder. Okay, so, about to get weirder. How would we define a date? Okay? How would we define a date? Now, this is us speaking. This is not the Bible's definition of date, okay?
Because dating isn't biblical. It's not to say dating's unbiblical, it's just not a biblical term. Okay, so you get it? So we just have to take wisdom. What does the Bible teach us and how do we apply it to this? You know, what is about how much should I text today? Texting is not biblical. If texting isn't biblical, it's not a biblical term. You take biblical knowledge and you apply it to it. So, what is a date?
Okay, so, a date does not have to be a response to a romantic interest, but rather it can be a scheduled time with someone of the opposite sex with a purpose to encourage and enjoy and get to know them. I've been on dates with lots of guys. Well, I would say lots of guys. I mean, I've been on dates with all kinds of people.
I just think that time. I just
time.
Folks still waiting for dates.
There were several guys that I went out on dates with while Maddie and I were getting to know each other, okay? And
we were dating.
Yeah, we were dating. And the purpose of those were because it was so encouraging. We would spend time together. It was fun. It wasn't just a romantic interest. And Matt went on dates with multiple people during those years. And honestly, I wasn't wondering, oh man, how's Matt relating to those girls? Like, that makes me nervous because is he being inappropriate with them? Then he's going to come back and want to take me out on a date. That's all rowdy, right? But I wasn't like that because number one, Matt didn't relate to me like that. He wasn't inappropriate with me like that. And I knew his character and I knew I had been learning about it. I'd spent time with him and other in groups and I was learning from other people around. Who is this person that he? And I knew that I could trust his character and I learned a lot about him because he was going out on dates with other people and how he was handling that too. So,
and it also told her that I hadn't locked in. I wasn't hers and she wasn't mine, and yeah, we had a preference for each other. And I would tell my man Joe in confidence, I'm like, dog, ain't nobody like Joey Felico. He's like, well, take out Tracy. That's fine, it's fine, you know? Ain't nobody like Joey Felico. You know, and I would come back encouraged and challenged, and I began to see, honestly, areas that Julia needed to grow in. And as you hang with people, areas that I needed to grow in. And it was just healthy for our heart. And there came a point where I went to Julia and I said, all right, Julia, we know each other 2.5 years. We clearly had a thing, you know, like, you need to shut her down with the other fellas. Like, if so-and-so, wow, good buddies. He would ask her out. Man, like, you know what I'm saying? He's like, Julie, you come back like, this is the most encouraging girl I've ever spent time in my life. I'm like, shut up, you know? No, that's my heart, but I was like, that's right, she should be. And I said, it's time to shut her down. I would like to pursue you. So I said, yeah, are you at a point? I said, I'm at a point where, I think this ain't going there. I'm not asking you to if anybody else asks you on a date, say no, actually call him up, tell him you with me. There was a time for that, and then we were there. But the point is, we had already discovered almost everything we needed to know about each other in the context of a brother-sister relationship. Oh yeah, why would I date somebody that? Yeah.
Okay, so maybe say, why in the world would I date someone I'm not like romantically interested in? Because remember the definition that we're kind of presenting before you. Dating's not only about romantic potential; it's about encouragement, potential for encouragement.
I'm gonna say the link to the blog post that I'm linking below talks about this as well, like the purpose behind an actual date with somebody, which I have done it like this, and I actually kind of like it.
No, yeah, but that's what I was saying before, like just a group situation in which I personally think it's better in a group situation, but you can be with anyone. There's no fear of the like sending mixed signals, or there is, but there's a lot more of like you're not really.
Let me share this one experience. I had one guy. This is actually the guy that sent me this podcast. So him and I like just have mutual friends, like didn't really know each other, but we went to an event together, and like through that he's met with my dad a couple times for like discipleship stuff, and like he knew that I was trying to date this certain way, or like outside of the box, like think, you know, like can't we just like go on dates to get to know people, whatever. So he texted me one time and he said, this was like, I don't know, like 3 years ago. And he texted me one time and he just said, hey, Kelsey, I just wanted to see if you ever wanted to hang out sometime, go on a date. I don't forget exactly the words that he used. But he said, like, I don't really have feelings for you or anything, but, like, I would really like to get to know you better. And I think that, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it's just he wanted to get to know me. And he thought, like, because we're both trying to date this way, maybe it would be a good idea if we went on a date together. And I was like, that was actually a really good way to ask that. And I said yes, and we got ice cream, we went on a walk, we hung out, we talked about like intentional and deep things, and like it was really good. And I just felt like, and there was no misconceptions. We were both very like guarding of our hearts, but also getting to know each other. And it was also kind of fun, you know? So it was just like, and that's only happened to me one time that way. But it was because like he was also coming into the relationship with that understanding, and I wish that there were more people that like also thought that way, because I would say yes to first dates a lot more often if they were, you know, if they were like that. So.
Now to clarify, we're not advocating that you take one person out like 10, 15 times just to encourage them and lead them on into thinking.
Yeah, no interest.
You don't have no interest. Y'all listen, here what we're saying, our principles. We're saying altering your view of what dating means. Honestly, I'm telling you, it would open up so many doors for encouragement. We miss out on our brothers and our sisters because we don't take initiative towards doing what the Bible tells us to do. Encourage one another daily as long as it's called today.
And so this is the point why you say, if you are in an exclusive relationship, do not text him, hit the road, Jack. No, not at all. You can do this thing right. You just need to be honest. You need to bring in a mentor, a pastor, friend. If you just jumped past no brother sister, just exclusive to see if this person's a match, then I would say you probably could have figured out a lot of that in the brother sister. But it's not. You can have a great exclusive relationship. You just need to be honest about what it's doing. So, all right, gotta take on Steve in 10 minutes. Number 3, what are some pathways to intimacy that we should be aware of? Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart. From it flows the wellspring of life. Guarding your heart is not protecting your heart. You're going to get hurt. It's not preventing anyone from your heart. Guarding your heart is this idea of keeping it Godward. So how do you do that? There's 3 areas we would suggest. The first one's obvious. The second 2 are very important. So the first one is physical intimacy. So how far is too far?
Yeah.
How far is too far? So imagine if I went up to you and I said, how far should I run? You would be like, you ever ran? You got asthma? You know, you got any shorts? Like, you need some more information. No, I'm trying to give it up. Yeah, got any shorts? Awkward. I'm married. Why'd you ask me that? Okay. The point is that you need some more information, right? Well, how far is too far? I'm glad you're asking, and I'm glad you have a concept of far. A lot of people don't. Secondly, we don't know you, honestly. Maybe holding hands is too far. Maybe caressing is too far. Maybe hugging, kissing. I don't know. But I don't love the direction of the question. The direction is how close to the line of sin can we get? And we are yes people. And Paul said all things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. I will not be mastered by anything. So we want to just run after the Lord. But what does the Bible say about purity? The Bible's really clear. Here's what the Scripture says: For this is the will of God. So you're wrestling with what's God's will regarding me and her. Well, good. I'm glad you're wrestling with that, because we know one thing: your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality, that each of you know how to control his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like those who do not know God. 1 Timothy, treat older women as mothers and younger women as sisters in all purity.
1 Corinthians 6:18-19, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immoral person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You're not your own, for you were bought with a price, so glorify God with your body.
So here's an application. This is not an official stance of campus outreach. We just think that this helped us. The application of this. Would you consider, when you're dating, would you relate to another person as though they could be your best friend's future spouse? Where we go out on a date, and I want to treat you in such a way that 5 years from now, if my best man married you, I can still invite you all over for games without feeling awkward, right? I'm not going to relate to you in such a way that my best friend one day would look at me and be like, "Come on, man, maybe why? She wasn't yours." We actually...
What do you think about that?
Hold on. Can you play that part back again or something?
Right? I'm not going to relate to you in such a way that my best friend one day would look at me and be like, "Come on, man, maybe why? She wasn't yours."
No, I would go back farther.
With a price, so glorify God with your body.
So here's an application. This is not an official stance of campus outreach. We just think that this helped us. The application is this. Would you consider, when you're dating, would you relate to another person as though they could be your best friend's future spouse?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Such a way that 5 years from now, if my best man married you, I can still invite you all over for games without feeling awkward, right? I'm not going to relate to you in such a way that my best friend one day would look at me and be like, "Come on, man, maybe why? She wasn't yours."
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I really like that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something about that earlier, but I didn't know that was too weird. Like what I was saying about the damage you could do if you're, because I didn't want to be like, because someone else could end up dating. It sounds kind of weird, but it's true. Like if you're not end up being right for each other.
If you're not there's a 99% chance that the person that you're dating is not going to be your future spouse. Like just consider it being more likely that they're not than likely that they are. And so if it's likely that they're not, then they're probably going to be getting married to somebody else.
Right. And if they're the most eligible person in your friend group, then you should almost kind of hope that your other friends end up finding someone like
true.
that. So
We took to heart these principles. And the guy that dated her the most, when we dated, he was a groomsman for me. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey man, I want to thank you for the way that you dated my wife. I want to thank you. I think she's a better woman because of her time spent with you." And the guys at her campus that she spent the most time with, Matt and Marco, I went to them and I said, "Dude, step it up. I want to thank you for that. Yeah. I want to thank you." Or, JB, we need to teach y'all that handshake. I want to thank y'all. Thank you for the way you care for her. It was a sweet thing. It was a sweet thing.
So there are 3 common objections and responses to this call of purity, this pursuit that we're calling you to. The first one is, can't do it. I can't do it. Many of you immediately throw in the towel and say, it's impossible. And yes, we hear you, it is hard. And it does require a God-centered perspective, plan, and preparation, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Especially if you have crew around you, of brothers or sisters in Christ that are holding you accountable. So get this. We were, if sexual past is 0 to 10. 0, I mean, ain't even, looked at a girl wrongly. No, I ain't touched a girl. Okay. 10 is sexual intercourse. We were both 10s. And the first time we ever held hands was on a date where I told Julia that I was pretty certain that God was calling us to be married, and that I wanted to take the next few months and allow him to confirm that. Think about that. And it's not that I didn't want to. It's just that God could do it. And don't get the wrong idea that, wait, are they saying that it's not right to hold hands? No, that's not the point. The point is, for me, when I touched the hand, I didn't want to just touch the hand. You know, like, that's in my past. I mean, it was like, my boy looked at me, Joe, and he was like, baby, you were not made to hit singles. You trying to hit home runs, brother. And he's like, seriously, he's like, you just need, you got it?
What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
Okay. So the first objection is.
Will was in the back. Just come rescue us whenever. We gotta finish this up.
Okay, I can't do it. I can't have that purity. The second one is I won't know them if I'm not physically intimate with them. So there is this thought that is a way to get to know them and see if you have that chemistry. There's a time and a place where physical intimacy is right and it's a delight.
And Adam knew Eve.
We would suggest.
Hey, we haven't, like, I don't know you very well. Can we, like, have sex? I just want to get to know you a little bit better. Like, you know, I just thought, you know, we're like, I met you the other day and was just like, we should probably get to know each other a little more.
I mean, if you think about it, from a worldly perspective, it kind of makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, that's just normal in relationships. But it's just so damaging. Like, there's such an emotional thing that happens. Like, there's no way that people can be emotionally okay when they're, like, just hooking up with you all the time.
Yeah, right. Like,
there's no way.
Hey, I met you the other day. Can we do the absolute most extreme and close ritual that has existed for all time? Like, that could literally end up with you having a child of mine. Please. Just so that we can get to know each other.
That physical intimacy before marriage can really hinder that, honestly. It can be hindering and not helpful because it clouds your judgment. It prevents you
And can I say,
do that.
I mean, honestly, if you're, I feel like there's something to be said about if you're ever, you know, struggling with this a lot and you really, really, really just want to have sex, or go far or, you know, whatever, it's ultimately a really good, thing to think about it in regard to, like, if she is the kind of person where, you do think that you're going to, like, whether you think you're going to go far or not go far. If you're not going to go far, then it's going to be damaging in all the ways that we were just saying. Like, if it's not going to be able to, she's not going to be able to date or be a consideration anyone in your friend group or anywhere else. You know, you would just, you know, wasted the only chance you have with your most, eligible girl. You know what I mean? Who didn't end up being your spouse, or you kind of stole, or sort of like when you pursue sex first, sex becomes the foundation for a much heavier thing than sex is able to hold. You know what I mean? So I would say...
Or I feel like another way to say that is it might not be the first thing, but as soon as you let it go there, it's bearing a lot of the weight of the relationship.
Yes,
like, it could be the reason that you're not breaking up with the person you're supposed to be breaking up with.
Right.
Because you have this connection with them.
Yeah. That's a good way of saying it.
Well, really is, aside from the physical intimacy, we see a lot of guys and girls, both vice versa, but a lot of guys who are with girls they honestly shouldn't be with, and they know that, but they feel obligated because they've been with them to a place physically.
That's what I just said.
Wow.
That was so
You're, like, so smart.
They feel like they can't leave, okay? And girls, vice versa, where you've been with them intimately and you feel stuck. So when two people should be learning interests and dreams and passions, instead they're hooking up, right? When people should be learning to confess wrongs, ask for forgiveness, reconcile, instead they're hooking up. So honestly, newsflash, when you get married, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's not like we're in a fight and I'm like, hold on a second, let me go put on them boxers. She'd be like, nah, you come back in here, I'm gonna throw something at you, man. Now, you know, it's like, we gotta talk it out. We you know, and you can learn to do that, but people short circuit it, right? So let me say this, first time we held hands, right, was on that day on the mountain that we got lost. Remember that? We got lost, y'all, on the mountains, and it got really dark, and I was like, this is how I got the hand. I was like, girl, you're probably not gonna make it climb down this mountain unless you go ahead and grab this hand right here. And she was like, all right, Maddie B. And so literally, it was like, oh, wow. And so we got in the clear, y'all. And she was like, she put her hand like that. And I go, nah. And she's like, you can let go now. I'm like, nope. And then at the end of that night, we had our first real embrace. And y'all, I'm just going to go and tell you, it opened the flood of desire. In the next 6 months, we battled with our physical purity. We had our first kiss, we had our first makeout, and I'm honest to tell the story because I don't want you to get the wrong impression. I remember being so thankful to God that for 2.5 years we didn't let any of that into our relationship. It was so clear, it was so pure, and then all of a sudden we would get together with guilt and remorse and sorrow and fight. And I'm just telling y'all, like you just don't need it. You don't need it. It just adds a layer on end of complexity. So the third is you'll miss out. We gotta finish. We actually need 2
It was all
parts.
that sex talk.
Wrap it up.
We'll say this: 2 other patterns of intimacy. Number 1, number 2 is communication. The scripture says whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. So there's power in communication, and we would say the principle is speak what's true and will always be true. So you don't need, fellas, you don't need to be saying.
I've kissed a lot of people.
I've never seen in my life.
He's saying that, like, speaking the truth is, like, intimate and loving thing to do.
Yes.
Someone with you. You don't know that's always going to be true. You just say, you look great tonight, and I have a great time.
And what it does, though, is it ties your hearts together. It's intimate, okay? You see, God's word says that type of communication is just like if you were to kiss each other on the lips, okay?
Yeah.
It's another pathway that ties you together.
So you want to be mindful. And then lastly, there is an aspect of spiritual intimacy that you don't want to use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. So Julia and I, we weren't physically intimate. I was watching the things I was committing to her, but the guy discipling me and the guys in my Bible study were like, Maddie B, you guys have a role in each other's life spiritually that nobody else does. You're encouraging her like nobody else. She's encouraging you. They said, so on your next date, don't take your Bible. And tell her she can't take her Bible. I was like, I got him stored up here, fellas. And they're like, Maddie, don't talk about God. Just talk about like life and fun and just have a blast. And what they were doing was they said, we believe that you are connecting her to you in an intimate way. That if you guys were to break up, if stop dating one another, then there would be some.
That's interesting.
Like spiritual repercussions.
Like, spiritual intimacy can sometimes be too much as well. That's interesting.
Wow, I even never considered that as a danger. Interesting.
Yeah.
So all right.
So, just to reiterate what he just said, I think that's the final point. I think that's what we'll land on, is that spiritual intimacy is something to be concerned about. Maybe not as much as physical intimacy because it's not as much of a temptation, but the damage that it could do is still there. Magnus is so loud. Because the damage it could do is still there, because if you tether that person to you in a spiritual way, that makes it sorry, so distracting. If you tether that person to you in a spiritual way, it when you break up, which is most likely going to be most of your relationships, it only works one time. When you break up, it's going to be much more, not only harder on you emotionally, but it's going to be hard on your faith, and you're going to realize that you gave a part of your spiritual life to somebody. And so, not that you should never talk about God, not that you should never have spiritual like encounters with each other. Like, I feel like what they were saying is that's healthy sometimes, but when that is like the essence of your dating relationship, sometimes that's also premature when it's not within marriage.
Yeah. Which
is interesting. I haven't really don't think about that one as often.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed. Okay.
There's lots of stuff there. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I interact a lot with people on my Instagram. It's @_with_strength_and_dignity_. So if you have any thoughts or questions or comments about this, feel free to reach out to me on there. If you have anything for Jackson, I'll pass it along to him. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with me.
Ow!
I just hit him. Sorry.
I forgive you.
All right, so thanks so much for listening. This is just the kickoff to my whole relationship series. We're going to be talking about friendship and singleness and marriage and all that kind of stuff. This is kind of the kickoff of just thinking about mostly singleness, pre-dating, dating, romantic type relationships. Okay, bye, Jackson.
I'm right here. I can hear you.
Okay. All right, we'll see you guys in our next episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Strength and Dignity. If you learned something or felt encouraged by this episode, take a quick second to share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it too. Hope you tune in next time.